It's our Conversations with Great Minds hour for the week. Timothy Noah is with us. He is a journalist, the senior editor of the New Republic, the author of the book, The Great Divergence, America's Growing Inequality Crisis and What We Can Do About It. And Timothy, we have a number of people who want to talk to you on the telephone. Before we get to that, is there any point that you would like to make in general, or about the book, or about the times that we are living in, that we haven't discussed, or something that I haven't brought up that should have been?
Well, I just would comment. You were reading the news earlier, and about the strange bargaining position that the Democrats seem to be taking on the fiscal cliff. Something similar is going on with negotiations about the filibuster, and I wrote about both of these things today. The Democrats seem to be in the process of giving up on any really meaningful filibuster reform, and in both cases, we're seeing Democrats who were actually looking pretty tough for a while, possibly reverting to wimpy form, I'm afraid, and it's disappointing to see.
Yeah, disappointing is not quite a strong enough word. It's enraging. It's not going to help them in 2014. I'll tell you that.
Democrats don't seem to understand, the exercise of power. They seem to be a little bit afraid of it.
Yeah, it's more
holding all the cards in both situations.
Yeah, it's more of a can't we all get together situation. Let's pick up some phone calls here. Brian in Denver, Colorado, listening on AM 760. You are on the air with Timothy Noah.
I was wondering what your view is of how SSDI and SSI increases are measured in terms of the real cost of living, given we didn't have an increase from about 2008 till up until 2012. In other words, I'm including that there was an increase in 2012, especially given that seems to be perhaps something on the table to lower.
This is SSDI, of course, being Social Security Disability Insurance, SSI Social Security Insurance. Timothy, your thoughts?
I've heard. I mean, I don't know whether those are included in the proposal. There's a proposal to chain cost of living increases for Social Security, and I don't know whether it includes those parts of Social Security or not. In general, I will say that this process of chaining, I think, it's just a benefit cut disguised as a technical fix. The theory is that people go out every day. They go shopping, and if cheddar cheese has gotten too expensive, they'll buy Swiss cheese, or if beef has gotten too expensive, they'll buy chicken. And if that change in shopping habits becomes permanent, then after a couple of years, that'll get incorporated into the market basket that's used to calculate cost of living increases. But if it's temporary, it will never be accounted for. And consequently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has this very complicated alternative way of calculating cost of living increases that takes into account those substitutions. And I may add, not every substitution is necessarily as neutral as chicken for beef. I mean, you might have in an extreme example, you could have dog food for regular food. I mean, it doesn't measure a decline in the standard of living. Nonetheless, they argue that this technical fix is justified by behavior of shoppers. The problem is that the elderly, who constitute most Social Security recipients, have a very different market basket. A big part of their market basket is medical costs, which of course are increasing much faster than everything else. So so a number of people said, hey, if this is really about making a technical fix, a true technical fix would increase cost of living benefits, not decrease them. So it's all a bit of a con, and what it really is a benefit cut.
Isn't there also something built into there where, for example, in calculating the cost of living adjustment, the inflation adjustments for Social Security, they have technology. So I've heard, I think it was Senator Sanders told me. First of all, he said that this chain CPI not only will affect disability insurance, but it will also affect disabled veterans, 3 million disabled vets, because their income is tied to SSDI. And he's quite outspoken about that. In fact, he issued a press release about it today. He's
a disabled person would be presumably in the same situation as an elderly person, would be spending money out of pocket.
But there's also this technology thing where they've been looking at this and saying, oh, look at computers have gone from $3,000 to and for 256K to $2,000 for a megabyte to $1,000 for a gigabyte, and so they've gotten cheaper and they've gotten more powerful, and so we have to adjust the cost of living to reflect the fact that technology is getting cheaper and cheaper, when in fact most seniors are not buying a new computer every year, but as you point out correctly, they are buying medications and they are buying food and housing, which is not getting cheaper.
Right. I don't know the details about how they calculate the market basket, but certainly, the big point is this is not a technical fix. This is a benefit cut disguised as a technical fix. Now, in general, when you talk about income inequality, one argument that conservatives make is that people don't need as much money as they used to because food is cheaper and clothes are cheaper and electronics are cheaper. And that's all true. But conservatives never want to talk about the rest of the story, which is that there are also a lot of things that are a lot more expensive. Cars are a lot more expensive than they used to be. And I'm talking about after inflation now. Houses are a lot more expensive. And of course, most important, medical care is a lot more expensive.
Right. Patrick in Clinton, Maryland, watching on Free Speech TV. You are on the air with Timothy Noah.
Yes, Mr. Nolan, I wonder your thoughts on... Hello.
Yes.
I wonder your thoughts on the legislation that was enacted that allowed these corporations to move offshore to China and India, giving them tax breaks, and how that has led to our income inequality and why we, the workers, haven't demanded that we get our, if not our jobs back, at least the tax revenue back.
Well, I think you're right. That probably has contributed to income inequality. I don't know how much it's contributed to income inequality. Probably not very much, but there is certainly a legitimate question to be asked about why are we subsidizing companies that move jobs offshore. President Obama talked about it during the election. Maybe after all this fiscal cliff business is worked out, we'll see the administration moving to propose legislation.
Okay.
I think particularly if there's a reform of the corporate tax, that'll have to be part of the discussion. I'm not sure that there will actually be a change in the corporate tax.
Yeah. Noah in Madison, Wisconsin. You are on the air with Timothy Noah.
Hi, good to be with you. Well, I don't know where to start. I try to be active. I try to educate people about the issues of the day, what I learn on Free Speech TV, what I learn from the books I read. I read Unequal Protection. I'm reading right now the untold history of the United States. I've read hundreds of books, maybe thousands of books in my life. Everybody just seems so discouraged that I talk to. Either they seem discouraged, like, oh, what can I do? You're fighting against powers that can't be beaten. So I'm just going to try to do things that make me happy and forget about the current situation of our global political environment. Or they think, well, I have a lot of conservative evangelicals in my family. They just think my ideas are just flat out wrong. And I'm wondering, as somebody who's on Social Security disability for mental illness, whether I'm not doing harm to this people's movement by being associated with it, because they just look at me and say, well, he's crazy and we don't have to listen to him. Why aren't people listening to people? Why aren't the people that have the ability to change things listening to common sense?
Yeah, Noah, these solutions seem so common sense and straightforward. Or Timothy, excuse me, echoing Noah's question, why isn't there just a simple common sense conversation going on in America about the things that you're suggesting?
Well, I think we could have, it would be easier to have that conversation in Congress if we could get rid of the kind of structural obstruction that we have with the filibuster. We could have passed global warming legislation if it weren't for the filibuster. We could have gotten the public option. in healthcare. The filibuster is, I know it sounds boring, but it's a really significant reason, a really significant obstacle to all sorts of policy solutions that enjoy broad support in the country. I don't think that political action is futile. I think that we've seen a change as a result of politics. We might actually be in fact, just entering a moment where we might see some gun control finally implemented. Unfortunately, the reason is this terrible tragedy in Newtown, Connecticut last week. But it does seem to have shifted the politics of the issue, and I would hope that grassroots groups take advantage of it. Pressing.
It seems like we have to hit bottom to come back. We'll be right back with more of Timothy Noah. He's the author of The Great Divergence, America's Growing Inequality Crisis and What We Can Do About It. And he's answering your questions, your calls. We'll be right back, 45 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And Timothy's website, of course, timothynoah.com. And his book, The Great Divergence, available in all the usual suspects. Timothy, what do you see as the role? What do you see as the biggest obstacle to any kind of progressive change with regard to inequality? It seems to me that it's Citizens United and the thousand variations of it. Basically, the power of money and government. That Jefferson's warning has come true.
If I were to point to one single thing, I think it would be the decline of the labor movement. The labor movement wasn't just a force operating inside the workplace. It was also a very important force in politics generally. And the political power of labor unions has diminished. And labor unions were really the only institutions in America that were designed exclusively to look after the interests of ordinary people. So in addition to changes in the workplace that have come about with the decline of labor unions, we've seen some significant changes in our politics. So if the one thing I think I would want to do is bring back the labor movement.
And how would you do that?
Well, again, it's very hard. I mentioned the making the right to organize a civil right. Sort of ideally, one would like to repeal as much of Taft-Hartley as is humanly possible. And Congress came close with card check. I forget precisely what the vote was, but they were in shouting distance of getting it.
But they're not any longer, are they?
No, and of course that was when we had a wholly democratic Congress, which we don't anymore.
Right, and when the unions had a little more juice.
Right. One fairly easy sell, I think. Maybe it might be difficult to achieve today because it's expensive, but I think it's got very broad support, and that's universal preschool education, which would really help level the educational playing field a lot. Obama campaigned on this in 2008, and my understanding is that this is not something that conservatives necessarily look askance at. We had, at the start of the 20th century, we had something called the high school movement, where states, people around the country in various states pressed for high schools to be built in communities, and they pressed for public funding of those high schools. All those things, didn't come automatically. People had to fight for them. And
what years was that? When was that?
The late 19th century, early 20th century is when we had the high school.
Was this the consequence in part of Horace Mann's efforts in the 1880s?
It was about 100 years after Horace Mann, up to 100 years after Horace Mann. But it took a while. First there was the idea of public education, and that it generally meant lower grades, but it took a little longer to achieve high school education. You remember when we were an agricultural nation, it was hard to get teenagers to go to high school all day. They had to work on the farm. So it helped when as we became a more urban nation, it became easier to get high school age kids into high schools.
Very interesting. We're talking with Timothy Noah, the journalist, senior editor of The New Republic, and author of The Great Divergence. More with Timothy Noah. TimothyNoah.com, by the way, his website, right after this. Stick around. Welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. Lydia in Tehachapi, California. Okay, you are on the air with Timothy Noah.
Yes, I had a question in regards to the analysis of the labor movement. I'm always very frustrated because historically we've measured it by shops organized and the total number that are full-time active members under a contract. With the transition from shops leaving the country, and specifically corporations targeting shops or factories where labor was strong and just shutting them down, regardless of it's the same thing like Hostess. It wasn't that it wasn't profitable; it just doesn't want to have a union. And so, although we have a diminished number under union contract, the labor movement's force has to be recalculated, kind of like those in the 20s and the 30s. It wasn't the people under contract. It was the people who were active in social movement. And I'm wondering how he analyzes that in the context of labor as in this transformation.
Well, yes, you can't rebuild labor in the same form that it was built in the 1930s. We have a very different economy. As you say, we have an international economy. One thing that's been talked about is internationalizing labor. Corporations operate globally, so labor unions will have to operate globally as well. That's a tall order, but it's, I think, necessary. It's a necessary goal. So yes, the kind of labor movement that we have in the future, I think, will look quite different from what we've had in the past. It will reflect changes in our economy. But I think we really need to begin some hard thinking about how to rebuild it.
Eric in Springfield, Illinois, listening on Sirius Satellite Radio. You're on the air with Timothy Noah.
Yeah, how you doing, Tom? I've been listening to Mr. Noah's your program, and I'm trying to figure out here if not have read the book at all, if the history of the decline of the manufacturing in this country is being explained. I mean, growing up in the Midwest, I've seen the demise of towns like East St. Louis, who was a manufacturing city for many years. After World War II, some of the older manufacturing facilities weren't repaired. There was a slight stoppage during the Vietnam War, but then after Vietnam, at a rapid pace, our manufacturing died. And it was in the 80s, it was finally brought out that a lot of our places have been shipped overseas and things of that nature.
So, Eric, your question.
My question is, every time I hear one of these things, it always starts with the middle class. Okay? of the workers, okay, from the factory
your question
are very rarely mentioned in any of these things, and it started long before this. So I just don't understand,
Okay.
I'm having a hard time understanding
Okay.
the explanation.
Eric, let's toss this to Timothy Noah. Your thoughts, Timothy, on Eric's comments?
Well, yes.
When did the real decline of the middle class?
Steeply, but it's interesting to compare what happened in the United States versus what happened in Germany. I mean, the thing about globalization is it affects countries around the world, right? It should affect comparable nations in Europe the same way it affects us. But if you look at Germany, they managed to maintain a very significant manufacturing sector by retooling and going after very high-skilled manufacturing.
Well, they also maintain a VAT tax that they aggressively use as a functional tariff. If you want to import something into Germany, you have to add about 18% of the cost of it. If you want to export something from Germany, you get about an 18% discount. That's a 35%, 36% spread there. That's in the neighborhood of where our tariffs used to be.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that issue per se, but certainly there are, in general, one can say it is not, Germany is an advanced industrial democracy like we are, and they have managed to hang on to their manufacturing sector. Yeah. But it's a different kind of sector than ours. It's emphasis. They're not participating in the race to the bottom. Yeah. They are not trying to compete with third world countries that can provide extremely cheap labor. They're trying to take advantage of the education level of their workers.
Okay, we have just a minute left. I'm seeing on the board calls the people who are making decisions to cut our benefits. What are their benefits? Is there a way people can buy your book and send it to the president or Congress? What about filibuster reform, nonpartisan redistricting? Would that help solve the problem? And did the Tea Party members get into Congress illegally? You want to take any of those or just riff on them?
Yeah, that's a lot. We talked about filibuster reform. I will say my book is coming out in paperback on January 22nd.
Oh, so great.
I hope people will buy it for themselves at least. Redistricting, I'd have to look at the particular proposal.
Doing away with gerrymandering. Has anybody seriously had a serious conversation about ending gerrymandering?
I think it's pretty hard. I think it's like ending corruption.
Yeah.
It's certainly the gerrymandering that's been done.
Yeah, there you go. Timothy Noah, TimothyNoah.com, the website, the book, The Great Divergence. Also, he's senior editor at the New Republic. You can read his work there. Timothy, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Tom.